Everyone, and it's so great to be with you. I'm still looking forward to the time when we can do these events in person, but I'm so glad we could have a wide range by doing this by Zoom as well. So there's been some advantages to that, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to share this evening with so many of you tonight. We're in for a treat. Provost Teresa Woodruff is really an amazing person, an outstanding scholar, and as was said in Nick's introduction, really the academic leader of the university. The provost is a unique role. Everyone knows who the president is, people know who the coaches are, the athletic director, people have an idea of what a dean does, but many people don't really have such an idea of what a provost does. And in Teresa Woodruff, we have someone who really leads the academic components of the university. All of the deans and the academic side report to her. So any dean reports to the provost directly. She's responsible, again, for student success in terms of the teaching and learning that is the core of what we do. And she also plays a key role in coordinating the research that takes place, too. We do have a vice president for research and innovation, but the provost, because they are responsible for the faculty, are really key in getting anything done in that sphere. So Provost Woodruff, as we learned, came to us from Northwestern University, where she was dean of the graduate school. She is a highly distinguished biomedical researcher, a member of the National Academy of Medicine, the National Academy of Inventors, and brings a portfolio to bear in her work that is really very remarkable. So I was so delighted that she decided to join the executive team at MSU, and I think to really help us in this very difficult times, but also really help us plan for the future. And that's something we'll talk a lot about tonight, is how do we move MSU forward? We've been doing great work during the pandemic, and Teresa Woodruff has played a key role in that. The Provost's office, of course, has been integral in working with all the offices of the university to make sure we continued our core missions of education and research. She's done that very well. But now, as we hopefully start to get back to more normalcy, and we're excited about the upcoming arrival of students. There's a lot of students on campus already, by the way. It's very exciting to see them back again. But as we get to that point, we need to be thinking about the future. And what are the ways in which we're going to continue to make MSU a place of distinction, a place that really matters to people? So we've been developing a strategic plan. She's playing a key role in that. And one of her foremost responsibilities will be to take this 32,000-foot strategic plan and then on the academic side, find ways to implement it in real ways, working with the deans, working with department chairs, working with individual faculty, working with students and graduate students and researchers, working all together to help us really bring to bear the full strength of the university on our academic mission and on our research and innovation mission. So we'll have a lot of questions and interesting things to talk about, and I'm going to begin by talking about this first question, which is, as I said before, I'm so delighted you decided to join the executive team at MSU, specifically to lead all these academic programs. What are some of the reasons that led you to want to do this work at Michigan State?
Well, thank you so much, President Stanley, and that introduction was just amazing. And I share with you the enthusiasm of being back on campus with an increased density of people across the campus. It took a little longer to get over here to the WKAR studios to be with you tonight, and so it's just really exciting. I think MSU is just an incredible place, and every day that I'm here, it continues to impress me by the people and the work that's done here. And some of the things as I was coming to this institution that I appreciated was that there's just a great underlying strength of educational commitment, of a wide range of students that get educated at this great institution, and a series of points of excellence that really make up the MSU DNA. And it's part of why we're part of the AAU, the great 64 American universities, 2 Canadian universities that really represent the best of all higher education in the nation. About 4,000 universities in the United States, we're in that top category because of these great underlying strengths of teaching, of research, of really dedicating that work to translating into students' lives as they learn and translate out of this institution and then into the rest of the world. There are many parts of the institution that are really extraordinary, part of which are faculty and staff. Our faculty, academic staff, and our regular staff really have the kind of excellence that I think we all ascribe to. And if we look across the institution, there are great foci of this kind of excellence. And I think, for example, of the teaching and learning centers that have been set up within MSU and then more nationally by Ann Austin, or our Academic Advancement Network, where we've really been innovating in how to broaden the diversity of our faculty and academic staff. It's really led by Marilyn Amy. Or even FRIB, our great facilities in rare isotope beams. That really represents some of those areas of just extraordinary excellence that really represent national landmarks that we have here at MSU, and it's many parts of that, those kinds of pieces of excellence that were really part of the reason that I came to MSU. I think the greatest ingredient for coming to MSU really was you, Sam, as a leader nationally, someone really well known and renowned. And you have shown yourself more than ever to have both the understanding of ordinary academic principles, but also in this time the extraordinary, which has been needed during this time of COVID. And I'm really delighted to be your partner during this particular time, and hopefully a little bit beyond this time when we're really thinking a great deal about physical health for our community.
Well, thank you for those very kind words. And as I said, though, right back at you. It's been a great partnership from the beginning. And I think both of us came on at a very unique and challenging time in Michigan State's history. And yet I think one of the things I'm proudest of, again, is the work you and other members of the senior leadership team, and again, the whole university have done to keep everything going, and yet at the same time also reach towards the future with our strategic planning efforts. So I think those things have been important. So I want to, just before we go into kind of more details on the academic plan, would you mind telling the audience a little more just about yourself? And I know how hard you work. Do you have time when you're not working, and what do you do during that time?
Well, that's a great question. A little known fact about me is that I like to bake pie, and eventually when we're together, I'll bake you a pie of some sort. I'm also a big baseball fan. I still like the Cubs, but I've started to, watch a little bit about the Detroit Tigers. So, kind of a little bit of both. Those are two things I really like. I have a big garden. I love to garden and cook out of that garden. So those are some of the things I like. I also continue to work in the Oncofertility Consortium. The Oncofertility is fertility management for young cancer patients. And so a little bit in the off MSU time is to continue to develop the capacity to provide fertility options to young cancer patients, both here and around the globe. And that's something that's been a passion of mine. I continue to get great notes from families who have been part of the Oncofertility Consortium, have now have their own families and hope for a healthy future. So those are some of the things that I like to do outside of the time that I'm really focused on MSU.
Well, I'm looking forward to the pie. I'm actually a huge pie fan, so that'd be fantastic. And I'll stay off camera, but sometime off camera I'll tell you what my favorite flavors might be to just plant that seed. So you kind of touched on this in your initial comments, but MSU has extraordinary intellectual capacity, and you've talked about this in maybe academic spirals of excellence. Can you kind of explain a little bit about what that means exactly when you talk about that?
Yeah, so that's a term that I use to really think about. As I was coming to MSU, one of the things I've done over this last year is to really try and understand the different components of the institution that really represent these foundations and then building of what I call spirals of excellence, that both represent foundation of excellence, but also beacons that shine out to the rest of the academic world. And so both have a way through that beaconing structure to provide information from the research or the teaching and learning enterprise that we have, but also draw people in. And so I've kind of been going across campus and looking both for what those beacons are and maybe for some of those slight anchors that are just a little bit weighing us back and turn those anchors then really into sails. So I've thought about this as spirals of excellence, and also in terms of really what I think the MSU narrative is. We often talk in higher education about how many students have arrived on campus, and we're really delighted to welcome about 50,000 students in the next couple of weeks, maybe the next week actually. They'll all be with us, Sam, so that's going to be so exciting. We talk about the graduation rate, which is so important, and I think MSU has continued to have an upward trajectory there with about 81.3 or 5% of students that are completing in 6 years, and that's really important quantitative data. But I also like to think in terms of a narrative. What is it that an MSU education can do for every individual who passes through our gates? Everyone who's coming into this campus, whether it be faculty and academic staff or our students, what are those imprints? And so as I've thought about it over this last year, I've come to believe that the MSU imprint is very specific, and it's very different than any other institution in the nation that I know of. And the first area really is in entrepreneurship and innovation. Secondly, in ethics and honor. And finally, really in the quantitative and creative halves of our work. And I think as we think about those as 3 spirals of entrepreneurship and innovation, of ethics and honor, of creativity and quantitative, if every single person who comes through this institution has an imprint in those areas, those are the leavening that allow all of us as an institution, as a state, as a society to really rise. And so those are some of the things that I've been thinking about in that area.
So that's really interesting, and I think that some of that's appearing, I know, in the strategic plan, right. And you've had a key role in making that happen. Tell us a little more about implementation to some degree. Yeah. How does that happen? How do we get entrepreneurship and innovation across multiple disciplines of the campus? And so what's your thinking on that?
Well, that's the key. And it's really so impressive that this campus, even during COVID, has continued to really think in aspirational ways. And that has been etched out in a strategic plan that really are the goals of all of us. And it's not your goal or my goal, it's not the dean's goal, it's the goal of all of us. And so that strategic plan does include, as part of it, this imprint, as it should, of education, of entrepreneurship and innovation. And some of the ways we're working to implement that really are within the Broad College, the Burgess Institute for Entrepreneurship. This is a great way for us to broaden not just what the brand of Broad is for our business college, but we now have a business minor where students can come to this campus with a business pref, but actually have that entrepreneurship and innovation imprint if you're in CANR or if you're in ComArt Sci. You can actually find food and sustainability innovation centers. You can find innovation within our game development group. Those are part of the classroom. And then in addition, we provide opportunities for the ecosystem of how you develop those ideas into an entrepreneurial idea. Is it a business? Is it an NGO? Is it simply a habit or a way of thinking? If in fact we can imprint on our campus a way of not being afraid of the precarities of life and being able to be innovative entrepreneurial in the face of a changing environment, a changing set of human health standards, changing expectations between human beings, we're going to have a group of students and faculty and academic staff who are going to be able to go out with that MSU imprint and really change the world. We also have the Apple Developer Academy, as you know, this great opportunity in the city of Detroit to work hand in glove between MSU and Apple to bring to our state and community and region ways that students who are interested in the newest and probably next economic revolution, which continues to be in the digital and app environment, and in fact whatever comes after that, which is what I hope our Apple developer students ultimately create, we're going to be able to welcome them into either a 1-month or a 1-year program. And I think that's also going to be part of this kind of ecosystem of entrepreneurship and innovation. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how all of our deans across the campus who are really engaged in this arena, which is really largely everyone, is going to be able to use these new assets to continue to build. I think we're in the Princeton ranking for entrepreneurship and innovation. We reached number 15. I don't know if I should say this on TV, but my goal is to be in the top 5. And I think you join me in that, and my hope is that everyone will see us really moving aggressively in this area. And in as much as we create a spiral of excellence in entrepreneurship and innovation across our campus, it will be that beacon that I think will signal to the rest of higher education where we're going, will draw people in, and it will be transformative.
So that's great stuff. And you know, as I think about the Apple Developer Academy and think about the importance essentially of really building a technological infrastructure essentially for the city of Detroit, for the state of Michigan, and Michigan State's key role in doing that with the highly ranked engineering department, highly ranked computer science department, one of the world's experts in facial recognition and AI, all at Michigan, and finding ways in which to send some of that out and distribute some of that in ways that'll make a difference, I think could be great. And of course, it's so wonderful that of all the universities in the entire United States, Apple picked Michigan State to be the partner, and so we're very proud of that. And of course, and the rocket companies are an important partner in that project as well. So I did want to come back though to the spirals of excellence and also talk a little bit about ethics and honor.
Okay.
You know, why is this so important to focus on, and particularly now?
Well, I think that the habit of the mind for every student has to be imprinted on with ethics and honor, and that's something that's a philosophy and a principle of mine, largely imprinted on me by my father, who every time we went on vacation would ask this question of three little kids, 5, 7, and 9. What is true? What is truth? What is false? What is falsehood? And literally, I had to answer that question every summer vacation, and you know, so that's come through. But that was an imprint of mine. But I was so impressed as I came to MSU and talked across with many of our deans, just extraordinary thought leaders, Sam. I know you think that these are some of the best academic leaders in the nation. And as I talked with them and really thinking about the MSU of our future and the role of the university in creating, stabilizing, building societal culture, we kept coming back to the principles of ethics and honor. And I think we're going to be really building, and the strategic plan really lays the groundwork for all of us as a community to be really thoughtful in how we can enable an ethical way of thinking, the structures, the philosophy, and then the pragmatic utility in business, in in the car industry, as you've described, as we continue to move in new ways in automation and the next level of ways in which we engage in the digital environment. How are we going to do that in a way that maintains societal structure, ethics, and honor? And so we will be hosting an ethics symposium this fall that I'm really quite excited about, bringing thought leaders from the nation, but really bringing our experiences as an MSU community, going through the last several years, really thinking in a deep and thoughtful way of what is true, what is truth, what is false, what is falsehood, and using that to inculcate into every way we work. And through this institute and the way we're going to enable our thinking, I'm really quite excited about what we're doing there. And secondly, we have a great honors college, Sam, and I know you join with me in really celebrating those best of the best, those individuals who come in as students and are really have really distinguished themselves in their high school setting across this great state of Michigan. And what we do is we plant opportunity spectrum for them, but they take that opportunity and really move it in ways that just really are extraordinary and really unimaginable. We couldn't plan it, they create it. And so with our new dean of the Honors College, Chris Long, we're really taking that Honors College and making it a sail as one of our new ways of really thinking across the entire institution. Again, one of these parts that I think is the leavening. Inasmuch as the Honors College becomes part of all of us, that is the leavening that helps all of us rise. And I think that's going to bridge us to this beacon, again, that's going to sweep across higher education in a way that I think is going to be quite exciting.
Well, I'm certainly get inspired every time we talk about it, and I think there's so much opportunity there. And I look at the fact, as you well know, that many of our alums and donors have been really principally engaged in helping bring some of these plans to fruition, because with their vision of how important they think ethics and honor is, how important they think entrepreneurship is, we have people who are making key differences going forward. And we need the same type of support, honestly, for the Honors College as well. That is such an asset to the university, and finding ways in which we can expand its reach, expand the courses that are available, expand the experiences that those students have, and make it available to more students who are qualified, I think it would be exciting.
Absolutely.
So one of the things, Teresa, you talk about is kind of the quantitative and creative mission of MSU. And how does that shape your thinking kind of about our future?
Well, I think in as much as we can use both hemispheres of our brains, I think we're going to be whole brain humans. And if you read I know you're going to be talking at some point about our strategic plan with our alumni. You've started talking with the board, and with the deans have started to think about implementation. And I'm so excited about what that plan will ultimately bring. And if you distill it down, it's asking us to really think across our entire brain, to be whole brain human beings. And to really, again, if we think about the imprint, what's the narrative of an MSU education? Not just how many people come in, not how many years you graduate in, but really what the imprint is that we do. What is it that you walk away with? If you walk away from this institution thinking in a whole brain way, that's going to be the way in which, again, we can impact the globe. And I see that etched out throughout our strategic visioning that's been done by the campus over the last year. And I think about every student who is in the engineering program who's really also thinking about the campus as a classroom and walks around, sees those labels on trees. Those students that go to our Broad Museum for one of the great exhibits that you and I both saw last year. I know there are many coming this year, but Seeds of Resistance was last year. And I think that in as much as we see things both from a way of looking in a numeric way, how do we count? How do we understand whether something is a true outcome? But we also bring our creative souls to what we're doing. I think that's going to be exciting. The classroom, the campus itself really is a classroom. We're teaching from it. We're using that classroom, that capital, those facilities, those bricks and mortar, in ways that I think are so robust and, again, so different from any other institution. I'm very happy to talk with anyone across the nation and literally the world about who you can become if you come to MSU. Because it is a very specific way of thinking that I hope we're inculcating in every student.
Well, I think so many people are hungry right now for that return to campus experience,
right.
And that chance to really do experience the campus as a classroom. And I couldn't agree with you more with the Broad, with the Billman Pavilion. We have so many places in which people can go beyond kind of the classroom, the conventional classroom, and really get acquainted with the arts, get acquainted with our botanical garden, get acquainted, as you said, with the amazing varieties of trees that are on our campus. There are so many things you can learn about MSU. And I'm so excited, as you said before, and this will be the third time we said it tonight now, I'm so excited that we're going to have students to share those experiences with back on campus again. So it's so important.
Right.
So you are the leader of academic programs, as we've talked about, and have a key role in research. And of course, Extension also reports to you, which is one of the most important ways in which we provide extension, essentially. We reach out to people and we really fulfill our land grant mission of taking the science and the knowledge we generate and applying it to people's lives in ways that make a difference. So what do you hold as some of the core values that we have to hold as a university to preserve our innovation, preserve integrity in our academic mission? Yeah,
so that's really important. And to me, I revert to three core values: freedom of speech, pursuit of truth, and our ability to reason together. So in as much as we maintain those that point toward true north, we will continue to develop the contours of the map that we walk together. But those represent really what I think are the underlying academic values. And I was really pleased to see the various values, those values fundamentally as part of our strategic plan. We talk about integrity. We talk about the ways in which we have to maintain a convivial environment. We talked about collaboration. We talk about excellence. We talk about equity. Those are all really key principles and values that we both aspire to, but we have to be today. And those are some of the things I think about in answer to that thought question, Sam. Well, maybe I could ask you a question. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
We've been talking really a lot about the university's overall strategic plan. And again, I think we're all so thrilled that you continued to do that even while we were going through this last year. So it really has etched on it both our time, but also the time in which we lived, but also the future that we're planning. So I'm wondering how you're thinking about the overall support that we're going to need. What's really happening now with can I ask you about our capital plan? What's going on in that capital plan?
You can, and I'm happy to talk about it. This is such a critical part of what we're doing, and the planning we're doing and the exciting initiatives we want to implement at the university are very much dependent upon the resources we have to do it. And we want to be the most, obviously, careful stewards of those resources in every way we can, but getting new dollars makes a huge difference in our ability to start these things. So the Empower Extraordinary campaign was just that, extraordinary. We raised almost $1.8 billion from more than 255,000 donors. This is incredible. The gifts supported 4 main areas: student scholarships, endowed faculty positions, facilities, and research, all of which exceeded their fundraising goals. And so that was a great success. And I'm pleased to say that more than $1.2 billion of that $1.8 billion is already at work. So that's money that's working right now to make a change around the university. The campaign generated momentum and really fostered a culture of giving, particularly during times of need. Like every other institution, in the COVID year, we had some slight decreases in fundraising, as other institutions had around the country, but we bounced back very strong in this past year, and we actually had a very significant percentage increase in our fundraising and reached $232.2 million in the 2021 fiscal year, from July 1, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. So on behalf of Michigan State University, thank you to all of you who made a contribution during this time. And this is the kind of seed corn we need, essentially, to do and make the kind of changes and improvements and undergo some of the dramatic initiatives we need to really move Michigan State forward. So thank you for your confidence in Michigan State University, and you're willing to invest in our future and hopefully the future of the state, the region, and the world. So we are going to need a new capital campaign. We're already in the process of planning that, and we'll be looking to our community of loyal Spartans, like all of you here, for advice and guidance in how we do that. So we're very excited about that.
Terrific.
So I have some questions that were submitted by the audience now.
Okay.
And I'll go ahead and start. So let me find them here.
Okay.
First one. This is for you, Provost Woodruff.
Okay.
When one is for me, I will give it to myself.
Give it
I
to
promise.
Yourself, yeah.
I promise. I won't give them all to you.
Well, you can also rebut anything I said and
yes,
say we can go back and forth on these.
Okay. How do you plan to enhance and expand graduate education, including to be more cross-disciplinary and to recognize the achievements of graduate students and postdocs?
So that's a great question, and I think one of the things that I really do think we're underpowered in the number of doctoral students at MSU, and one of the things that we say that really in the strategic plan. So one of the things we need to do is to continue to increase the number of advanced degree pursuing students, PhD students, who are within our institution. We have a very big goal for our research. I don't know if we're ready to say that number, but we've got $1 billion goal, and I think the interoperability, Sam, between what happens when you have a great teaching university and a great research engine is that you teach better. Your learning is really at the cusp of knowledge. I talk about the fact that you go from horizontal learning, where the answer is in the back of the book, to vertical learning. That's what we do at MSU, where you have a great scholar, a great research scientist who is really developing the answers that will next year be in the back of the book. But because we have that great scholar, we're teaching and learning in a vertical direction. And the intersection between those two spiraling parts of this institution, that great research and that great teaching and learning, are the graduate students. They really are the glue, and they are the accelerant to our ambitions for increasing our federal dollars. And really the reason to do that is that we can continue to build our influence in the ways those students learn and the way that work gets enabled into economic impact across the state, in the way it becomes tomorrow's cure for today's patient, which is the ultimate hope of research in modern medicine in particular. So I really think that we have to invest more in our graduate education. And I think the question also asked about postdocs. One of the things I did there was to change the name, the title of our associate provost for graduate and postdoctoral education. For those of you who are in the audience, the graduate student is the student who's pursuing that PhD, who really creates a wholly new piece of knowledge, of scholarship, of performance. And then the postdoc is that individual who moves one step beyond that and is now really an apprentice within the track that will go on to be our next great faculty members at MSU and beyond. So I think we're really investing highly in the thought process and the work to enable both our graduate population as well as our postdoctoral population.
So they're both foundational to our ability to do research, and I think people really don't always understand graduate education. It can be both highly specialized, but also productively very powerful. And if you look at who starts companies coming out of universities, there's a high proportion of them started by graduate students or by postdocs. They tend to be innovative, they tend to be willing to take risks, and many of them work in conjunction with faculty to build some of the companies that can make such a difference in people's lives. So they're valuable in so many different ways, and I think they don't always get the appreciation they need or deserve, and I'm glad you're making these changes to acknowledge the postdocs. And again, I look forward to the possibility of expanding our graduate program. I think it's going to be critical to reach that ambitious $1 billion goal.
It is that leaven. It is that leaven.
Exactly. So that was submitted by Pam Fraker. I just wanted to give Pam credit, a retired university distinguished professor in biochemistry and molecular biology and an Abbott Society donor. Pam, thank you for that question and for calling out our graduate students. So next I have a question submitted by Alan Hruska, MSU specialist in MSU Global Innovations, who asks for the president and or provost, how does MSU put into practice being a global university? So I'll let you talk first and then I'll pick up.
Well, you know, when I first interviewed, I was asked at one point, what word defines you? And I said, I'm a globalist. I think in ways that really impact, what we do here impacts the world. And I was just yesterday in a meeting with the Vice Chancellor from Daystar University, who was here because we just got a USAID grant for about $15 million for Kenyan youth empowerment. And the Vice Chancellor is just an extraordinary thinker, and his thesis is, in as much as we empower the youth of Kenya, we will, similar to our beacons, that will become one of the spirals of excellence for within this relationship across the globe. And so I think it's an example of how we work in a globally responsible way. For our teaching and learning, Sam, last year, you know, we started a study away at home program, which allowed students who are abroad to actually study in their home country because it was very difficult to travel to the United States. And we are continuing that this year because many of our students are still unable to make it here to our East Lansing campus. We do hope to welcome every single one of them as soon as it's safe and they're able to travel. But we're really thinking about how we enable both the student who is coming to our campus, how we can help them within their homeland, and then also how our research really is enabling to these partnerships across Africa, where we are known for over 50 years, and to impact the next generation of Kenyan youth, Malawian youth, Costa Rican youth, across China, and really in a bi-directional way. And I think that's what a globalist university means. And I think that's one of the things we need to continue, and our strategic plan projects that we will continue to really focus on how we make this teaching and learning connection, this research connection, and empowerment engagement. So that's the way I think about it. How do you think about it?
Very similarly. I think the point I'd make probably that is one that I feel is very important is that we always want to encourage our faculty, staff, and students to be thinking globally. And so we want to make sure that there aren't barriers to them reaching out and having opportunities for study abroad, for faculty exchanges. All of these programs are incredibly important. And I think we can have kind of 1,000 points of light in some way of ways in which we're interacting at multiple campuses, multiple countries around the world. But at the same time, we need programs that really will have significant impact. So we need to develop some very deep partnerships, universities where we really have really come together in very concrete ways to move things forward. And I think you talked about one of those already. And I think that, to me, is so important. And I think many of these are in Africa. I think Michigan State University has had the forethought to recognize that Africa is the continent of the future in terms of how it's developing, the resources it has, and the opportunities that are there to see people make extraordinary progress from sometimes who've been in some difficult situations. So I'm really excited that MSU is so committed to working in that realm. Of course, we're working around the world. We're going to continue to do that, and we have great partnerships in other countries with great universities. But I do want to call it, as you did, this special relationship with Africa, really with the establishment of the first land-grant universities in Africa under Michigan State University's guidance, and our great cooperation with USAID to really push some of these programs forward. So this is going to continue. I think we've made investments, the university has, in this area, and I think, again, it's a way in which we can influence people. It also, as I said, is a way in which we provide more of those experiential learning opportunities. So we have a great tradition of study abroad for our students, and this is a great example of an experiential learning opportunity, which I think is going to be a key part of our strategic plan going forward.
Right.
So our next question is for you.
Okay.
What are some of the best ways to develop inquiry in university classrooms? And that was submitted by Glenn DeVoogd, alumnus, professor at California State.
Well, you know, I really think in this whole brain way. So developing inquiry really is what are the customs of thought? How do you come to a reasoned understanding? How do you learn? How do you take that foundational knowledge? I mentioned earlier the horizontal learning. How do you take what is known, and how do you then learn how to ask questions and move into this kind of vertical pillar, which I think is the most progressive way to do inquiry, is to really think. And I think it is that custom of whole brain thinking. You know, one of the interesting things about MSU is not only do we have the customary colleges, but as you know, Sam, we have 3 residential colleges as well. And within those colleges, we have a very close relationship between the educators who are also research scholars of the first order and the students who are coming in and developing their own way of thinking. And this way of thinking, 3 residential colleges within one R1 university is really extraordinary. It's 3 Swarthmores or Oberlins, and our James Madison, Lyman Briggs, and ARCA are really extraordinary colleges. And the students that graduate from there, because of this way of inquiry, really go on to do things that are out of the ordinary. And so again, thinking about how we bridge those 3 residential college experiences and ways of inquiry across our campus is one of the things we're really working on with the deans. And it's really, again, inspired by the strategic plan, but and it's also inspired by the fact that one of my jobs as provost, you introduced what I do. One of the 3 things that I think is most important that I do is to hire the excellent deans who lead each of our campus colleges. And there are 2 real things that I'm looking for when I'm bringing new deans in. One is that they're really extraordinary academic leaders, that they understand how to think through some of the sometimes Byzantine ways in which an organization like a college has to work. So really has disciplinary depth, are themselves disciplinary superlative. individuals that if I said their name in various settings, everyone would know who that individual is. We want those kind of superlative individuals who are leading the disciplinary depths of each of our colleges. And the second thing I look for, though, is in addition to that disciplinary depth, I look for people who are institutionalists, people who can look from their college across the width of this institution and say, how is it that I think in James Madison could be part of a College of Social Science engagement? How is it that our College of Law, together with our James Madison, together with our College of Social Science, can become a nexus of excellence and become a spiral of excellence? I think that's what I am interested in looking at, and how we create those corridors of communication, that depthful inquiry, those leadership corridors that allow us to think and learn in unique and innovative ways. I think that's how we begin to change the ways in which we educate here and imprint those students who go out. And I'm really interested in seeing if we come back a year from now and have another conversation. I hope we do, Sam. Hopefully we're side by side then. But I think that's the way I think about inspiring inquiry, is bridging across the various disciplines in ways that become meaningful, tangible outputs of learning that align disciplinary depth with the institutional opportunities of a great R1 university.
So that's great, and I'll just expand on very quickly on two things. So one is the part about deans. We do have extraordinary deans, and I think one of the things that happens when you have extraordinary deans is that they're often called upon by others to become provosts at institutions, and that's happened to at least 3 of ours, I think, since we've been here. And it creates a challenge for us in terms of filling those positions, but I think we have to be very proud that the deans of Michigan State University are deemed adequate to fill some of the major university positions in the country. Right. And so very proud of that. And again, it's a testimony to the outstanding people we attract to MSU. And I think both the autonomy and authority they have within their colleges to make decisions, make these appealing jobs, because we give them the opportunity to really be entrepreneurial, of course, hopefully, and really make a difference. The second thing, I think, is just to get back to the original question about inquiry. And that's so important to the university, that we really be seen as a place where inquiry takes place, where freedom of speech, as we've talked about earlier, and expression are protected, where people feel comfortable challenging each other. But hopefully, and I think, I always say this, hopefully in a civil way, hopefully with civility and respect. So talk about the tough questions, talk about the tough issues, have inquiry, raise questions, have your own beliefs and understandings sometimes challenged by others, but hopefully in a way in which is civil and people recognize respect and have those kind of conversations. And I think that's really a key to education. And I think back to the courses I took at University of Chicago, and some of my courses in humanities really required such critical thinking, and I became so impressed by the critical thinking of my fellow students that they really prompted me to take a new look at how I approached questions, a new way of looking at the world in general. I think that's some of the power of education, and I hope that our Michigan State University students are experiencing that every day. So let's go on to the next one. And it's something you and I have talked a lot about because it was front and center during the pandemic, and that is online learning. So you were at the front lines with our faculty, getting people, making this huge shift. I'm the one who said, okay, we're going remotely tomorrow, or maybe in a day, I can't remember. I think it was tomorrow. We're going fully remotely tomorrow. And you were at the stage where people had to actually do this. So talk a little bit about that transition, quickly. It's in the past now, we did it. But talk about it, and then talk about how this may be preparing us for the future and the role of online learning in the future.
I think when you made the decision definitively, we moved quickly, and part of the reason that we could is because we had such extraordinary leaders in our deans who also took that leadership mantle and helped enable the very specific kind of work that happens within each of our colleges to be online. There's very different ways that you might offer some of the different curricular curricular offerings from our institution. So I remember telling our Dean of Engineering that when we went to online engineering labs, wanted to make sure that every MSU engineering graduate would understand the ability of metal to fatigue, even if they were in an online setting. And so one of the things that really helped us was that every one of our deans was incredibly entrepreneurial in thinking about how to take what has always been very traditional online, in-person, face-to-face, in a lab, in a studio, on a stage kind of work, and began to develop the pedagogy, the curriculum, to place it in a new modality. The curriculum itself, in many cases, was not changed. It was the way it was delivered that was changed. And our faculty last summer really took advantage of our Center for Teaching and Learning and their offering of a variety of faculty online tutorials so that faculty were ready for the kind of teaching that would occur within a Zoom environment. But I think we should all be very clear, Zoom kind of emerged right at the time of the pandemic, thank goodness in one way, but we were all, as humanity, learning how to engage in this new way. And the metrics for success last year are really quite striking. If you look at our reports that the students do on teaching evaluations, we made them non-mandatory for our promotion and tenure process. We said that faculty could use them, but we didn't want the added stress of the new modality to really be part of an absolutist way of evaluating. And the reason I was able to confidently say we could make that non-mandatory is that I expected that our faculty would really rise to the occasion. And in fact, Sam, if you look across these wonderful evaluations, and I know you have seen some of them in this last year as we went through the tenure process, the level of satisfaction by many of our students in significantly large numbers is really extraordinary. So our faculty were able to make that transition with a lot of effort, really. That still is very fatiguing, but we know that we can do that. We know we're a resilient intellectual community, and we've tried to protect the intellectual health of our community in as much as you've been helping us maintain our physical health. We continue to enable what we hope is a very healthy intellectual environment. So about 5,000 classes went online, about 10% were still in person. We should also note that a lot of our research did continue as essential research last year, and about 7,000 people were still on campus in our various labs, and both in pedagogical setting as well as in the research setting. And we did that very safely, Sam. It was really amazing that the in-person teaching that was required because of the pedagogical nature of that particular classroom need, intellectual classroom need, as well as our research, has continued really unabated since the early part of July. So that online setting is something that we now know we can do. And so we can now engineer forward a future-proof way of thinking about the needed in-personness. And we can think in a very new way about what does need to be in person. What do we lose when we're not in a small group setting, as many of our classes have been? What do we gain when we have the opportunity to be in a larger paradigm where we can reach out to more people, to have lectures from folks across the globe literally brought into our classroom? You and I were in a very special setting where one of our faculty was given the highest teaching award, and you and I got to see her teaching statistics for a very short period of time. I think it was statistics. You'll tell me what it was. But and we could see her, all the students in the Zoom room, highly engaged in the work that was happening. And so some of what we've learned, we want to be thoughtful about how to use in the future. But we want to return to what is a more ordinary or typical way of teaching, which is in this embodied way, in this physical way. We do think that there is a way that our institution does thrive because our students come to us from all over the globe, all over the state, and have an experience together that is both academic, co-curricular, and extracurricular. And while we could give the curricular, some of the other parts were those that had to be developed in other ways. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how we blend what we learned last year by necessity into the pragmatic ways we teach ordinarily this year.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. I think you've summarized it really well. I think it's a tremendous opportunity.
Right.
I think we can do some things we weren't able to do before. We can reach out to some students who might have had difficulty attending MSU in the past, particularly if we develop asynchronous courses for a number of these, so they can take the course at any time and don't have to be at class at a particular time. And a lot of our students, and I talked to a number of them this summer as I was traveling throughout Michigan, talked about the fact that they found some advantages to some of the online courses. They found some of them easier to deal with. Again, some of them being on their schedule, but also just the opportunity again to not have to get up in the morning at a particular time and show up and be able to do it remotely. They enjoyed that in some ways, and I think they found in some cases, again, the transmission through the screen and so on to be effective.
Quite
So
effective.
It's just an added quiver in our added arrows in our quiver, not an added quiver, but added arrows in our quiver that I think are going to be important for us. And I think I'm excited about what we're going to be able to do with this, and particularly again as a global university. Why can't we develop some programs where students are taking a significant component online and yet also coming to us for the experiential experiences that may be very important. So what about if you're in business, for example, but have an opportunity to intern at GM or Ford after having gotten some of your basics online from some of our professors? So there's a lot of ways to think about this in ways that expands our opportunities. So I'm really excited about it. And that was submitted, by the way, by Edward Knabb, who's alumnus and president of Productivity Constructs Incorporated. Okay. So we're getting close to time, but I think we still have a time for a little bit. And I think this is a great question from John Verbencore, which is, how does a major university continuously refresh its programs to ensure that graduates have the skills the industry needs?
So that's just a great question, and I think I'll answer it in two ways. And I don't want to echo myself, but at some level it is that the way we refurbish is because we are a great R1 university. And there is an essentiality to having faculty who are actively engaged in scholarship, research, and performance, the development of new creative performance, as our excellent teachers. Because it is then when our learners both understand the context of what we know, but are able to learn what is emerging literally from the stage to the laboratory. And that is the great promise of what we do at MSU for every student, is that they can understand how we move from what is known through the unknown. And our students have faced precarity over this last year like no other generation in 100 years. And I know you, like me, Sam, would have liked to have many times just taken this bucket from them. But we couldn't. They had to walk through this year. But I am confident that because of the way they're educated here at MSU, that bucket, although heavy, was filled with the great learning from those great educators who they themselves continued their own great scholarship. And it is that interaction that is the secret sauce that causes the combustion that is an MSU education. And I think the way we refurbish inquiry is by hiring the absolute best faculty who care so deeply about teaching while they continue to develop that next level of scholarship. And as you and I walk across campus, my favorite thing is to stand in the lab for half a day and get behind my schedule, or to go to a performance, or to walk to an art installation, or just to see a faculty standing in front of Beaumont Tower, sitting, eating a sandwich, and get to say, well, how are things going? And I'm very excited about what our faculty are doing, both in this last year and what they will continue to do this year. And I think the level of innovation, the level of development that every student will have means that every student leaving will have that opportunity for whatever comes, because they will have that sense of entrepreneurship and innovation. They will have a foundation of ethics and honor. They will be able to think both quantitative and creatively. And those are the student citizens, the student workers, the student leaders, the leaven for our entire state, region, and world. And so that's the way I would think through that particular question.
Great, and a wonderful answer. So I'm going to do one quick question because it's to me, so
Okay,
I'll
good.
answer it very
Okay,
quickly.
good.
And that is from Mary Lee Davis, former secretary to the MSU Board of Trustees and an alumni. So Mary Lee asked me, what have you enjoyed most since becoming MSU's president? And I think the answer is meeting the people of Michigan State University, our faculty, students, and staff, our alums, our donors, and our friends. I did more of it this summer. I was able to get out again a little towards the end of the summer and speak with people. It was something I enjoyed very much during my first few months, and I will be taking up again in the safest manner possible, taking up it again as we begin this academic year. And that's why I'm so excited again to have the chance to do that with our students, faculty, and staff will be back on campus. And it remains, I think, one of my great pleasures, and particularly for some of the new leaders I've brought to Michigan State University, like Teresa Woodruff, our provost, the opportunity to see them getting engaged with MSU, to see them become part of this Michigan State University and make such important contributions right from the beginning has been very rewarding for me and gives me great pleasure. So I want to thank Provost Woodruff for this wonderful conversation. I want to thank all of you for your attendance tonight. I want to thank you for your support of Michigan State University and your interest, continued interest in learning more about MSU's plans for the future. Why is MSU successful? It's because of Spartans like you who remain informed, engaged, and involved. So I want to express hope for your continued connection and your support of MSU going forward, and I will lead with two of my favorite words: go green!